Today we're going to go over setting up Netflow for Security Onion 2.4.20. That's the minimum version to support this. Security Onion Solutions added support for additional integrations to Elastic, and that was a requirement, or that's basically minimum version was 2.4.20 to have Netflow added in. To get started, you're going to want to go to your firewall. In this instance, we're going to be showing it with OPNsense. So we'll go to Netflow here. Inside of Netflow, you'll be able to program your sending addresses. On the left side, to get there, you're going to click Reporting and then Netflow. I have the advanced mode showing, but it's not required. That just gives you active timeout and inactive timeout. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that. You select your interfaces that you'd like to have it listening on, your WAN interface, and then you can capture it locally for statistics. That's kind of outside the scope of this. I have it enabled currently, but it doesn't have any effect on what will happen here. You want to select version v9. There's only two options, v5, v9. This is going to have additional fields, etc., and it's newer. Afterwards, you're going to program in your Security Onion manager or sensor, depending on how you have it configured. In this example, we're assuming that you have just a standalone or a manager search node, and you're just going to apply it directly and have Netflow sent to that device itself, that portion of the grid. So in this instance, it's 10.0.50.25. The default Netflow port is 2055, so we're going to keep that. Once that's configured, your box will be actively sending logs from the firewall to Security Onion, like that manager, sensor, or standalone box, depending on how you have it configured. However, by default, Security Onion does have a host-based firewall, and it will be dropping those logs. So we're going to want to go into Security Onion itself to solve this problem, as well as install the parsing integration inside of Elastic. To do that, you'll log in. Once you log in, you'll be at the overview page like we are now. We'll start off first with installing the integration. So you're going to select Elastic Fleet. So on here, we have just completed logging into Fleet. If you've logged in before, it will automatically log you in the next time on the same device. On this section, we're going to be looking at agent policies. In here, we're going to be setting the SO grid nodes general policy. This has the most integrations as well. So once you open this up, you'll see I already have Netflow in there. However, if you didn't, you'd do add integration. You would search for Netflow here. You would click it, and you'd select add Netflow records. In this instance, you can see how stuff would be parsed, which is cool for this example. We'll go ahead and click this. I already have one enabled, but I'm not going to click save on this example. You'll pick a name. If you wanted to have more than one Netflow instance, for example, you could have multiple ports, multiple listeners on different interfaces, etc. That's really outside the scope of what we're doing here. This is just a simple install. In my instance, I just left it with Netflow. However, you could prefix or append on here something more descriptive and change the UDP listening port and duplicate this guide to have different ingestion points. Under UDP host to listen on, this would be typically the gateway or like the interface IP. Gateway is the wrong word. It would be like the outbound for the box. Essentially the interface IP. If we want to do all of them, you would do 0.0.0.0. Then you could leave this default because this is what we configured earlier in OPNsense. This will have your internal networks, your typical class A, B, C stuff, the 10s, the 192s, the 172s, etc. We're going to leave this blank because it's going to do the standard RFC 1918 stuff, as well as the IPv6 stuff. This doesn't have any IPv6 in this example, but that's what would be done to handle it. Here you're going to do which host to apply the agent policy to. We already have one selected when we went in here, so we don't want to touch this at all. You'll click Save and Continue. I'm going to click Cancel in this instance because we already have one. When that's done, it's going to show up back on Fleet. So we need to click back. And inside of here, you're going to see your Netflow. And it looks exactly like what I just described earlier. Once that's done, we have configured OPNsense. We have got the elastic integration applied to the policy. Now we need to allow the firewall rule to allow the logs to come in. To do that, we're going to go back to our overview page. You're going to click Administration on the left, Configuration. Right away, we need to show the advanced settings. So you're going to go up here under Options, expand this. Now we need to go to Firewall, Host Groups, Custom Host Group 0. If you are using Custom Host Group 0, just increment to the one that's available. Inside of here, you're going to specify the interface IP. In this instance, the gateway for where the logs are coming from. So in this instance, it's going to be 10.0.51, the gateway, because OPNsense itself is sending it to Security Onion. Depending on how the environment's set up, that could be different. Maybe a switch, and you'd want to put the switch IP in here, for example. We're going to clear this, but once you're done applying it, you're going to do your IP /32/128 if it's IPv6. Then you're going to click the checkbox. That's going to save the changes. Once you do that, I'm going to click Exit in this example. You'll have your list populated. We're going to collapse host groups. Then we're going to open up port groups. Under port group, we're going to select Custom Port Group 0. Click UDP, and you're going to want to put in the port for Netflow. If you wanted to change this, you would change it here. So for example, if you wanted 2057, you'd put it here, you do it over in OPNsense, and you do it in the Elastic policy. All three options. But we're keeping the default. And it will be UDP because that's how OPNsense is sending it. Some instances you could send Netflow over TCP. Depending on your device that's creating it and sending it, the option might be here. In that instance, it would be good to potentially have two like we talked about earlier. One for TCP, one for UDP Netflow. Then you would also put the port here under TCP. Once you have the standard UDP port, assuming you're following this guide for OPNsense, PFsense, you're going to collapse this because we no longer need to mess with port groups. You're going to go to Role, and depending on how you have your device set up, if it's a manager search combo, a standalone, a sensor, etc., you could even select multiple of them. You're going to go into the one that you would like to have and what you specified inside of OPNsense as the IP for the destination. Apply the firewall rule to. So under here, we're going to click Manage Search, and I have a manager search node. You're going to open this, go to Chain, Docker User, Host Groups, and depending on which one you filled in our guide, we did Custom Host Group 0. You're going to select that. And you're going to select port groups. If you had to increment up because you're using this already, go to the respective one and go to port groups under it. Under here, you're going to do Custom Port Group 0. This is essentially saying for the Docker user on this box, which is the manager search box, we're going to allow this group of hosts inbound on this port. Once you do that, you're going to click OK, the checkbox here. And then we're going to click Synchronize Grid. That will apply the settings for just the Docker user. However, in our instance, we're going to need one more rule. So we're going to collapse Docker user, click Input. If you click Synchronize Grid now, it's fine. We need to do it a second time here. So under Input, Host Groups, Custom Host Group 0 like before, Port Groups, we're going to again apply this Custom Port Group 0 for the inbound traffic in. So this will allow it into the box to Docker. We're going to do both. We're going to click Synchronize Grid finally, now that we have this all applied. Usually it can take up to 15 minutes for this to fully apply. You can force call it on the back end. What I mean by that is like SSHing into the box, doing a salt state apply, and applying like the firewall logic itself. However, we'll let it wait the 15 minutes. I already previously applied this, and I pulled up this example to show. But once that has been applied, you're going to go to Dashboards, and when you load up your dashboard, you can filter by the event module of Netflow, and you'll start to see the Netflow data come in and it's actively parsed. In this example, we'll expand one of these events. We have the source, port, source IP, destination port, even the community ID that was generated off this to pivot on. Bytes, additional other exporter data, which is very cool to have. I thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.